Good morning, everybody, and welcome to HC Andersen Capital's 2023 Life Science Seminar. With me today, I have my colleague Henrik Ekman, pharma analyst in HC Andersen. We are going to present 11 interesting companies today. Those companies represent the value chain within life science in Sweden and Denmark. Focus today for the presentations is a brief introduction to the companies and update on their pipeline. Just some practical issues. All companies have around 15 minutes to present themselves, and then we leave 10 minutes for questions. For the audience, welcome to you, and you're more than welcome to post your questions during the presentations, and we will present them for management. Please max one question per company, because we have a restricted time of 10 minutes. With that said, I would like to welcome Henrik Ekman, and we will start the event. So, Henrik, just some brief introduction to the life science sector. What are the most challenging questions we can ask the companies for the moment?
Yeah, well, of course, what we have seen so far for the last couple of quarters is an increasing challenge to refund and go to the market to refund activities. There's no doubt that usually we have had this 12 to 18 month recurring financing exercise, which has been in a low interest rate environment, has been more or less done automatically. But what we have seen in the last couple of quarters as interest rates have risen, risk appetite has fallen. The biotech sector in particular has been hurt by this, so that the refinancing has been challenging. And for instance, we've seen a lot of rights issue either being postponed or they've been discounted very heavily, and the subscription levels of the rights issue has often been much lower than expected or anticipated by the company. So that is the main challenge as we see it.
And with that said, Henrik, we constructed more than a year ago our own index called the Little Mermaid Index. This index covers the Nordic life science sector, and as you see on the slide we just showed, we have on the black line is the Mermaid Index with monthly weights. The gray line is the biotech index in North America, and the blue line is MSCI World, just to show the difference between the stock market in general and life science in particular. And what do we see here, Henrik?
Yeah, well, this is an example of this ongoing risk off of appetite in the market. Now, what is different this time around since the beginning of the year is that actually we have seen risk on appetite in the market generally, as illustrated by actually being up. The general market being up somewhere between 10 to 15% half year. That usually corresponds to a rising risk appetite, and it usually also affects the attitude towards the biotech sector, which typically would outperform in a rising risk appetite environment. We have not seen that this year, and that suggests to some extent that these challenging issues that I've talked about automatic refund has affected the risk appetite downwards towards the biotech sector. And also we have had this rising interest rates, which has changed for many investors, has changed the asset allocation considerations, so that all of a sudden we have had an asset class that was not interesting from a yield perspective being being relatively much more interesting. This has has affected or asset allocation mixes by investors. So we see that, and what we see, of course, is that just as the global biotech sector, also our Nordic Little Mermaid Index universe has also been hurt by these issues.
Thanks a lot, Henrik. And then just back to some of the challenges that Henrik mentioned in the beginning. So normally, there's three main drivers as we see it. We have the M&A activity in the business, and this is ongoing independently of the environment in the sector. So Henrik, would you like to elaborate a little on some of those points we put on the slide here?
Yeah, just briefly. What we've seen is that the number of deals has actually come down quite substantially, but the levels, the average value of deals has more or less been stable. But this is often can be affected by big one-offs, and in this case, for instance, the Pfizer acquisition of Seagen of I think it was $42 billion. That can affect this value. But generally, deal activity is sort of stable, and we have venture capitalist funds attracting very much capital, being ready to move into the sector. So that's sort of the positive thing. On the other hand, we still see the operational financing challenging, becomes more challenging as described, and timing is an issue for this sector in the sense that if activities are planned to have a recurring 12 to 18 month refinancing, when we have these prolonged period of low risk appetite, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that or a vicious circle of people postponing their financing. Investors then thinks that the companies need capital, and share price come down. The risk is bigger dilutions and bigger discounts to rights issue, and then you have a vicious circle. So that sort of affects this whole deal activity and the financing of the sector. And actually, we've also seen, which is we have this saying that usually any pipeline project always finds a home somewhere, even though the company is struggling. But now we're actually seeing companies go bankrupt more often than we've seen before. Now that is sort of the financing funding part of the equation. The other one is the medical advancement in the pipelines in the company, and there I think we still see it as relatively stable. We can see measured by numbers, for instance, by how many approvals FDA gives in a certain time per quarter or per half year. We are at the average of what we've seen historically. So we can that's more or less okay. And just briefly, lastly, we have the valuation part of the equation. That is still continues to be supportive, but of course, as this risk off towards the sector drags on, this supportive valuation might as well suggest that the risk for further dilutive rights issue is increasing. So that's sort of the overall picture of the sector and its challenges.
Thanks a lot, Henrik, for that introduction. And with that said, welcome to today's event.